Have you ever found yourself checking your phone again and again after posting something online, waiting for those likes and comments to roll in? Or maybe you've worked tirelessly on a project, only to feel a little empty when no one seemed to notice. That hunger for approval, for someone to say, "Good job," to validate our efforts, is something so many of us know all too well. It's human, it's natural, but what if I told you this very need might be holding you back from a deeper, more unshakable kind of confidence? What if the secret to real inner freedom isn't in earning more praise, but in caring less about it? 2,000 years ago, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius was wrestling with these same feelings. In his private journal, known today as Meditations, he wrote, "It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own." Think about that for a second. We claim to know ourselves best, yet we hand over the keys to our self-worth to people who may not truly understand our intentions, our struggles, or our hearts. The Stoics had a powerful word for things like praise and criticism. They called them indifference, not because they don't matter at all, but because they don't truly define who we are. They're like the weather, outside our control, changing with the wind, and nowhere near as important as the foundation we build within. In this video, we're going to explore why detaching from praise might just be the most powerful mindset shift of your life. We'll dive into timeless Stoic principles that teach us how to find validation from within rather than from the outside world. We'll look at inspiring historical examples of people who remained steadfast in their values regardless of applause or criticism. And most importantly, we'll walk through practical, actionable steps you can take to cultivate this liberating perspective in your own life. This isn't about becoming cold or indifferent to others. It's about becoming more free, more resilient, and more authentically you. So if you've ever felt like your mood rises and falls with the opinions of others, I invite you to join me on this journey. It's time to rethink praise, reclaim your peace, and build a life rooted not in what others think of you, but in who you know yourself to be. In Stoicism, praise is neither good nor bad, it's how we respond that matters. This idea might sound simple, but it is one of the most radical and freeing principles the philosophy offers. The ancient Stoics categorized everything in existence into two distinct piles: things that are within our complete control and things that are not. Our own judgments, our values, our desires and aversions, and our actions, these belong to us. They are our inner world, our sovereign territory, but everything else, the opinions of other people, our reputation, our wealth or lack of it, even our own bodies and health to a large extent, these are classified as externals. The Stoics had a special term for these externals. They called them indifference, not because they are meaningless, but because their moral value is indifferent. They do not determine our virtue or our character. A compliment doesn't make you a better person, just as an insult doesn't make you a worse one. Your character is defined solely by your choices and your reasoning, the things that are truly yours to command. The philosopher Epictetus, who began his life as a slave, understood this dichotomy of control on a deeply personal level. He taught that we are disturbed not by events themselves, but by the judgments we attach to them. He famously said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. When someone praises you, that is an external event. Your internal reaction, whether you swell with pride, feel a rush of validation, or simply acknowledge the comment neutrally, is where your power lies." Epictetus urged his students to be like a rock against which the waves of praise and criticism crash harmlessly. The rock stands firm. It is not carried away by the wave, nor is it damaged by it. The opinion of another person is merely a sound, a set of words they have chosen to express. To tie your self-worth to that is to hand over your inner peace to the whims of others, to make yourself a slave to every passing comment. Imagine a seasoned public speaker stepping onto a stage. They deliver their talk with clarity and conviction. At the end, the audience erupts in enthusiastic applause. A person who is attached to praise might feel a soaring high, their ego inflated, their sense of success entirely dependent on that external reaction. Now, imagine the same speaker giving the exact same talk to a different audience that responds with silence, perhaps even a few skeptical looks. That same praise-dependent person would likely feel deflated, questioning their ability, their entire performance now feeling like a failure. The Stoic speaker, however, would have a completely different experience. Their metric for success was internal. Did they prepare thoroughly? Did they speak with integrity and to the best of their ability? Did they stay true to their message? If the answer is yes, then the applause is a pleasant addition, like sunshine on a walk, but it is not the point of the walk. The silence of the crowd is like a sudden rain shower, inconvenient perhaps, but it doesn't ruin the journey or change the fact that they walked well. Their calmness, their equanimity, remains unshaken because it was never built on the shifting sand of external approval in the first place. So, let me ask you, when was the last time you felt your mood shift based on someone's compliment or critique? That flicker of emotion is a powerful signal, a reminder of where you've placed your worth. Why do we crave approval so much, even when we know it's fleeting? It's as if we're wired to seek out that little spark of recognition, that nod from someone else that says, "You matter, you did well." But this craving, this deep-seated need for external validation, is one of the greatest illusions we chase. It creates a silent dependency, a form of emotional servitude where our inner peace is held hostage by the opinions of others. We become like beggars, holding out our cup for the small coins of praise, never realizing that we are sitting on a throne of our own inherent worth. The Stoic philosopher Seneca saw this dynamic with piercing clarity. In his letters, he warned his friend Lucilius about the emptiness of popular acclaim. He called the applause of the crowd a vain and empty thing, a mere echo in a cavern that sounds loud but carries no substance. He wrote that the man who is cheered by the mob one day can be hissed and booed the next by the very same voices, proving that public opinion is not a stable foundation for a life. Seneca wasn't saying that praise is evil. He was pointing out that building your sense of self upon it is like building a house on shifting sands. The tide of popular opinion will inevitably turn, and when it does, it can wash away everything you thought you were. This 2,000-year-old insight feels almost prophetic in our modern age of social media. Every like, every comment, every share is a tiny, digital form of applause. We post a photo, a thought, an achievement, and then we wait. That waiting is a form of anxiety. We refresh the page, watching the numbers, and we allow those numbers to dictate our mood. 100 likes might make us feel seen and successful, while a handful might leave us feeling invisible and inadequate. We have outsourced our self-esteem to an algorithm, to the fleeting attention of strangers and acquaintances. But this validation is an illusion. It doesn't fill us up, it only makes us thirstier. Each hit of external approval requires a bigger hit next time to feel the same effect, trapping us in a cycle of endless seeking. The Stoic alternative is not to reject connection or feedback, but to develop a profound sense of self-sufficiency, an inner citadel of worth that remains unshaken whether the digital crowd roars or falls silent. History offers powerful examples of those who understood this. Consider the figure of Cato the Younger, a Roman senator and staunch Stoic. He was known for his unyielding integrity and his refusal to play the political games that would have won him easy popularity. He stood against the corruption of Julius Caesar, often alone and often to the ridicule of his peers. The crowds did not cheer for Cato. They often found him rigid and difficult. Yet he remained completely unmoved by their disapproval because his validation came from within. He measured his actions against his own unwavering standard of virtue, not the fickle mood of the public. He didn't need their praise to know he was right, and he didn't fear their criticism. His compass was internal, and it gave him a strength and a clarity that his opponents, who were constantly chasing applause, could never possess. This is the ultimate contrast, a life of anxiety and dependency versus a life of stability and self-possession. So take a moment to truly sit with this question. What would it feel like to act from inner conviction rather than external reward? To choose a career path because it aligns with your values, not because it will impress your family. To create art for the sheer joy of expression, not for the gallery showings. To speak your truth in a conversation, even if it isn't the popular opinion. That feeling is the essence of Stoic freedom, a quiet, unshakable confidence that you are enough, simply because you are acting with purpose and integrity, regardless of the applause that may or may not follow. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, gave us perhaps the most potent metaphor for this very idea. He called it the inner citadel. In his private writings, he advised himself, retreat into yourself. The rational mind is content with its own just actions and the tranquility it finds in not needing anything from the outside. Picture that for a moment, a citadel. Not a flimsy tent or a temporary shelter, but a formidable stone fortress built within the deepest part of you. Its walls are thick and high, not to keep the world out entirely, but to protect the most valuable thing you possess, your core self, your character, your peace. Outside the walls, the weather of life happens. Praise and criticism blow like strong winds. Success and failure fall like rain. These externals are real, and we notice them, but inside the citadel, we remain dry, safe, and undisturbed. The storms of other people's opinions cannot breach the walls unless we personally open the gate and invite them in. This practice of mentally retreating into your inner citadel is the ultimate training ground for resilience. It's not about ignoring feedback or becoming arrogant. It's about developing a profound emotional stability that isn't knocked off balance by every compliment or piece of criticism. Think about the modern equivalents of the Roman Forum's roar. Your annual performance review, the comments on a social media post, the casual feedback from a colleague, these can all feel like verdicts on our worth. If we have no inner citadel, we are standing out in that open forum, exposed with no protection from the elements. A harsh word feels like a physical blow, and even a compliment can make us dizzy because we have no stable ground beneath our feet. But when you've fortified that inner space, you can receive that same performance review with clarity. You can sift through it for useful data. What can I learn here? Without letting the overall grade define your entire sense of capability. You can read a negative comment and instead of it ruining your day, you simply observe it as one person's perspective, a piece of information that may or may not be useful, but which certainly doesn't get to decide who you are. A beautiful metaphor for this is an ancient, deeply rooted tree. The wind howls, the branches sway, leaves might even be torn away, but the trunk holds firm because its roots run deep into the earth. The tree doesn't resist the wind, it yields to it, it moves with it, all the while maintaining its fundamental connection to the ground. The wind is the praise and criticism, the ever-changing weather of external opinion. Your values, your virtues, your understanding of your own efforts, these are the roots, the stronger and deeper they are, the less any storm can upend you. You can bend without breaking. You can acknowledge the force of the wind without being torn from your foundation. So how do we actually build this? How can you strengthen your inner citadel against the constant noise of others' opinions? It starts with small, daily practices of introspection. It's about taking moments of quiet to ask yourself not, "What do they think of me?" but, "What do I think of me?" Did I act with integrity today? Did I do my best according to my own standards? It's about consciously decoupling your actions from the expected reward of praise. You write that report thoroughly because diligence is a value you hold, not because you're banking on your boss's recognition. You offer kindness to a stranger because it's the right thing to do, not for the potential thank you. Each time you do this, you are adding another stone to your walls, another inch to the depth of your roots, making yourself that much more unshakable in a world that is constantly trying to shake you. Epictetus, who knew more than most about the harsh realities of life outside one's control, offered a line that has become a cornerstone of resilience. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This simple statement contains a universe of psychological freedom. He wasn't dismissing the pain of events. He was pointing us toward the one place we always have agency, our response. The art of non-attachment that he taught is not a cold, emotionless state. It is the skillful practice of placing our sense of self, our esteem, and our well-being exclusively on the anvil of things we can actually shape. Your effort on a project is yours to command. The quality of your work, your integrity in a negotiation, your kindness to a stranger, these are your domain. But the promotion that may or may not come, the compliment your boss may or may not give, the critic's review of your work, these belong to the vast and unpredictable realm of the external. They are someone else's thoughts, someone else's moods, someone else's biases. To attach your self-worth to that is like tying your happiness to the direction of the wind. Consider an artist in her studio, completely absorbed in the act of creation. Her entire focus is on the stroke of the brush, the mix of the colors, the expression of an idea that feels true to her. She is acting from a place of pure internal motivation. The painting is an extension of her vision and her effort, things firmly within her control. Now, imagine that same artist a month later at her gallery opening. If she has mastered the Stoic art of non-attachment, she can appreciate the applause and engage with the praise without needing it. She does not let the crowd's reaction rewrite the history of her creative process. If they love it, that's wonderful data. If they are indifferent, that is also data. But the worth of her work, and by extension her worth as an artist, was established the moment she put down her brush, satisfied that she had been true to her craft. The applause doesn't enhance it, and the silence cannot diminish it. Her self-esteem is rooted in the doing, not in the reception. This is the profound shift, moving from being an approval seeker to a values-based creator. This principle shines a stark light on the many ways we inadvertently hand over the reins of our emotional state. We give a colleague the power to ruin our afternoon with a dismissive email. We grant a stranger on the internet the authority to make us feel small with a negative comment. We allow the silent treatment from a partner to dictate our entire sense of security. In each of these cases, we have taken something entirely outside our control, another person's behavior, and we have wired it directly to our internal self-assessment. We have, in effect, made them the judge and jury of our worth. Epictetus would argue that this is a form of self-inflicted slavery. We are volunteering for chains every time we outsource our confidence. So let's bring this home with a moment of honest reflection. Where in your own life are you giving others power over your sense of worth? Is it waiting for your parents' approval on a life decision you've already made? Is it needing your entire team to like you as a leader, even when making tough calls? Is it measuring your success by your social media metrics instead of the authentic connections you're fostering? Identifying these leaks of personal power is the first and most crucial step toward reclaiming it. Your worth is not a prize for others to grant you. It is a foundation for you to build and inhabit, regardless of who is applauding outside the walls. Praise today can turn to scorn tomorrow. Seneca warned us about this very volatility with the piercing clarity of someone who witnessed the highest peaks and lowest valleys of Roman society. As an advisor to the Emperor Nero, he saw firsthand how the cheers of the crowd could morph into demands for execution in the blink of an eye. He understood that public admiration is not a stable currency. Its value fluctuates wildly based on trends, moods, and circumstances entirely beyond our control. In his profound letters, he wrote that chasing fame is like chasing the wind. It's an exhausting endeavor that leaves you empty-handed, having sacrificed your peace for a prize that was never real to begin with. He observed that the man who is carried aloft by popular opinion will inevitably be crushed by it when that opinion shifts, which it always does. This isn't cynicism, it's a sober assessment of reality. The Stoic, therefore, makes a crucial distinction. They pursue the longevity of character, a legacy built on virtue and integrity, rather than the temporary acclaim of the moment. A good name earned through right action is something that endures. Popularity, however, is a flickering shadow that disappears as soon as the light changes direction. We can find powerful evidence of this throughout history. Consider the fate of many great philosophers and thinkers. Socrates was praised by some of Athens' brightest minds, yet he was ultimately sentenced to death by the popular vote of its citizens, condemned for corrupting the youth simply by asking difficult questions. Galileo was celebrated for his genius, only to be persecuted by the very institutions that once lauded him when his scientific discoveries challenged established dogma. These individuals experienced the dizzying highs of public admiration and the crushing lows of public condemnation, often within a single lifetime. Their stories are not ancient relics, they are stark reminders of the inherent fickleness of the crowd. This pattern finds a disturbing echo in our modern digital age with phenomena like cancel culture or viral trends. A person can be elevated to internet fame on a Monday for a witty tweet, and by Friday, a mob armed with pitchforks can be digging through their past, seeking to tear them down for a misjudgment from a decade ago. The same mechanism that creates a viral sensation can just as easily orchestrate a public shaming. The currency of likes and retweets is just as volatile as the cheers of the Roman mob. This Stoic perspective invites a radical re-evaluation of our goals. If we truly internalize that public opinion is an unreliable and fleeting measure of our worth, it forces us to ask a much deeper question about our motivations. How might your daily choices and long-term decisions change if you completely removed the variable of being liked from the equation? Would you still choose that career path if you knew you would never receive public recognition for it? Would you still voice that unpopular opinion in a meeting if there was no chance of gaining social capital from it? Would you still create that piece of art, write that book, or build that business if you knew it would exist in total anonymity? Asking these questions isn't about promoting isolation or misanthropy. It's about liberation. It's about discovering the pure, unadulterated motivation that comes from within. When you act because it aligns with your core values, because it feels true to who you are, and because you believe it is the right thing to do, you break free from the exhausting roller coaster of seeking approval. Your compass shifts from external validation to internal conviction, and in that shift, you find a steadier hand and a much clearer direction for your life. What if you never received a single word of praise ever again? Not from your boss, not from your family, not from strangers online. The Stoics had a powerful exercise for confronting this very scenario, and they called it Premeditatio Malorum, which translates to the premeditation of evils. But it's less about fearing misfortune and more about inoculating yourself against the fear of losing what you currently enjoy. By deliberately imagining the absence of external validation, you systematically loosen its emotional grip on you. You play out the worst-case scenario in your mind not to breed pessimism, but to discover a profound and surprising freedom. You realize that even in a world completely silent of applause, you would still be you. Your character, your ability to act with virtue, your capacity for reason, none of that is diminished by a lack of external recognition. This practice reveals praise for what it truly is, a pleasant addition, but not a necessity for a life well lived. Let's make this practical with a modern example. Imagine you're working on a major project at work, a presentation that could potentially land a huge client for your company. You've poured your heart into it, working late nights and weekends. The common, praise-dependent approach is to work tirelessly while fantasizing about the moment your CEO stands up and applauds your effort, the promotion that might follow, the glowing praise in the company-wide email. Your motivation is tied to that anticipated reward. Now apply the Stoic exercise. Before you even present, sit down and seriously contemplate. What if this presentation is met with complete silence? What if the client says no, your boss offers no feedback, and your colleagues simply move on to the next task as if nothing happened? Sit with that feeling. Don't run from it, explore it. Would your hard work suddenly become worthless if you prepared thoroughly, acted with integrity, and did your absolute best? The answer from a Stoic perspective is a resounding no. The value was in the act of doing it well, in the cultivation of your skills, in the discipline you showed. The outcome, the praise or the win, was always outside your control. Visualizing its absence beforehand doesn't make you cynical, it makes you resilient. It allows you to walk into that presentation room grounded in your own effort, not floating on the hope of a reward that may never come. You perform for the sake of doing the job rightly, not for the applause. This mental shift transforms anxiety into calm focus. This is a mental muscle you can start strengthening today. I encourage you to try this exercise with something small. The next time you complete a task, maybe you clean the entire house or cook an amazing meal before anyone has a chance to comment. Take a moment. Acknowledge your own effort. Sit in the quiet satisfaction of a job done well by your own standards. Then, consciously imagine that no one will notice or say a thing. How does that feel? It might feel uncomfortable at first, but sit with that discomfort. You are confronting the dependency head-on. You are teaching your mind that your sense of accomplishment does not need to be certified by another person. You are the final authority on your own effort. This practice, repeated over time, builds an incredible inner fortitude. It allows you to receive genuine praise with graciousness, as a nice bonus, without your entire emotional state being contingent upon it. So let's end with a reflective question that gets to the very heart of your identity. If the soundtrack of external applause were permanently muted, what core values would still remain to guide you? What would you stand for if no one was ever watching? Your character, not others' opinions, defines your worth. This is the bedrock of Stoic self-adequacy, a profound sense of being enough that comes not from external validation, but from the unwavering knowledge that you are living in alignment with your highest principles. The Stoics identified 4 cardinal virtues that serve as this internal compass. Wisdom, the ability to navigate complex situations with discernment and sound judgment. courage, the strength to act rightly even in the face of fear or difficulty. Justice, the commitment to fairness, kindness, and duty in your dealings with others. And temperance, the practice of self-discipline and moderation. All these are not abstract ideals to be admired from a distance. They are practical, daily benchmarks against which you can measure your own actions. Your worth in the Stoic view is determined by your progress toward these virtues, by your earnest effort to embody them in your choices, big and small. It is a value system that is entirely within your control, one that cannot be given to you by others, and just as importantly, cannot be taken away. This stands in stark contrast to the praise-seeking behavior so common in our world. Praise-based confidence is like a house built on a foundation of sand. It looks solid when the sun is shining and everyone is applauding, but the first storm of criticism or the tide of indifference can cause the entire structure to wobble and crack. Your sense of self becomes contingent, fluctuating with the latest performance review, the number of likes on a post, or the approving nod from a superior. Virtue-based confidence, however, is built on the solid rock of your own character. It is an internal, unshakable knowing that you have acted with integrity, regardless of the outcome or the recognition it receives. The quiet satisfaction of knowing you did the right thing becomes its own reward, a private source of strength that is completely independent of the applause or silence of the outside world. Consider the simple, powerful act of helping another person anonymously. Imagine someone noticing a struggling family in their community and anonymously leaving a box of groceries on their doorstep in the middle of the night. There is no audience for this act, no one to pat them on the back or post a glowing tribute online. The act is performed purely because it is just and kind, because it is the right thing to do. The person walking away in the darkness experiences a profound sense of fulfillment that has nothing to do with praise and everything to do with virtue. They are not waiting for a reward. The action itself, aligned with their values, is the reward. This is the essence of Stoic self-adequacy in practice. It's the understanding that the most meaningful contributions often happen out of the spotlight, witnessed only by your own conscience. So, take a moment to look back on your own life. When was the last time you did something right simply because it was right, and not for the potential recognition? Perhaps you corrected a mistake that no one else would have noticed, or you offered support to a colleague without mentioning it to your boss, or you simply chose patience in a frustrating situation when you could have easily chosen anger. In these quiet moments of virtue, you are building a self-esteem that is truly your own, one that is permanent, reliable, and completely free from the need for anyone else's approval. Mindfulness lets us see praise as just words, not a verdict on our value. This practice is the modern echo of the ancient Stoic concept of prosoch, a focused and vigilant attention to your own mind and impressions. The Stoics understood that between an external event like someone complimenting you and your emotional reaction to it, there exists a crucial space. In that space lies your freedom, your power to choose your response. Mindfulness is the practice of widening that space, of becoming the observer of your own thoughts rather than being swept away by them. It's the mental skill of noticing the initial spark of pleasure when you hear, "Great job," without immediately pouring gasoline on it by constructing a whole story about what it means for your worth or your future. You learn to see the compliment as a passing event in your conscious awareness, a cloud floating through the sky of your mind, which you can acknowledge without having to latch onto it for dear life. This present moment awareness is incredibly effective at reducing our impulsive attachment to feedback, both positive and negative. When we are unmindful, praise doesn't just land as information, it triggers a whole cascade of internal reactions. We might instantly inflate with pride, start anticipating more praise in the future, or even feel anxiety about now having to live up to this new standard. We get caught in the story the praise tells rather than simply hearing the words themselves. Mindfulness interrupts this automatic pilot. It allows you to hear the words, "I really admire your work," and simply note, a compliment is being given. You feel the pleasant sensation, but you don't immediately fuse your identity to it. You recognize it as a temporary experience, not a permanent truth about who you are. This doesn't make the experience cold or robotic. In fact, it allows you to appreciate the kindness behind the words more genuinely, because your response isn't clouded by a desperate need for the validation they provide. Many modern mindfulness techniques are beautifully aligned with this Stoic form of observation. A simple practice like noting, where you mentally label thoughts and feelings as they arise, such as thinking or feeling pleasure, is a direct way to create that critical space. When praised, you might silently note receiving a compliment or feeling flattered. This act of labeling separates you from the raw experience and allows you to see it with more objectivity. Another powerful technique is the body scan. When you receive high praise, your body often reacts before your mind does. A rush of warmth, a slight smile, a feeling of expansion. By bringing mindful attention to these physical sensations, you can experience them fully without letting them hijack your entire emotional state. You feel the feeling without becoming the feeling. So let's try a quick exercise right now. Think of a genuine compliment you received recently. Now, instead of replaying it to bask in the glow, I want you to try and replay it with mindful detachment. Hear the words as just sounds, see the person's face. Notice any immediate urge to let the compliment define your mood or your self-image. Then, gently bring your focus to your breath for a moment, anchoring yourself in the present. The compliment happened in the past. This breath is happening now. Can you hold the memory of the praise lightly, appreciating its intention without needing to internalize it as part of your identity? This is the practice. It's about receiving the gift of kind words without becoming burdened by the obligation to constantly earn more of them. It allows you to acknowledge the sunshine of praise without forgetting that you are not the sun. You are the person standing in the light, complete and whole regardless of the weather. Picture the Roman Senate in a state of uproar. Julius Caesar, fresh from his military conquests, is demanding a lavish triumph and special honors. Many senators, eager to curry favor with the rising star, are ready to grant his every wish. But one man stands calm and resolute amidst the chaos. This is Cato the Younger. With a voice that cuts through the flattery and fear, he condemns Caesar's ambitions as a direct threat to the Republic itself. He knows his words will infuriate the most powerful man in Rome. He knows he will be mocked, isolated, and even threatened by his peers who see his stubbornness as a political liability. Yet he speaks without hesitation. His commitment to the Stoic virtues of justice and courage is not conditional on the room's reaction. His internal compass, calibrated to true north, remains unshaken by the storm of popular opinion swirling around him. For Cato, the only applause that mattered was the quiet approval of his own conscience. Cato's entire life was a masterclass in Stoic detachment from external validation. He wore simple, old-fashioned clothing in an era of decadent display. He walked barefoot through the streets of Rome in all weather, training himself to be indifferent to discomfort. He spoke his mind with brutal honesty, even when it made him enemies, because he valued truth over popularity. His political opponents, including the cunning Cicero, often found him exasperatingly rigid. They called him a stubborn fool who didn't understand the art of compromise. But Cato wasn't ignorant of politics. He was operating on a completely different playing field. While others were playing the short game of gaining power and praise, Cato was playing the long game of preserving his integrity and the soul of the Republic. His goal wasn't to be liked, it was to be right according to the Stoic virtues he held sacred. He understood that true influence doesn't come from being the most popular person in the room, but from being the most principled, even if you have to stand there alone. The pressure Cato faced is not so different from the ethical dilemmas modern professionals encounter every single day. Imagine a corporate boardroom where a powerful executive proposes a lucrative but ethically questionable shortcut. The room falls silent, everyone looks to you. The pressure to conform, to be a team player, to secure that bonus or promotion is immense. Speaking up could mean risking your reputation, your relationships, and even your job. In that moment, the ghost of Cato whispers a question: is your comfort more valuable than your character? The modern-day Cato isn't necessarily the person who makes a grand, public stand that gets them fired, though it might be. More often, they are the ones who consistently choose the right path in 1,000 small ways. They are the manager who advocates for a direct report despite political backlash, the engineer who refuses to cut corners on safety testing, the journalist who protects a source at great personal cost. Their power comes from a reputation for unwavering ethics, a currency that, once earned, is far more valuable and enduring than the fleeting praise of going along with the crowd. This doesn't mean being inflexible or refusing to listen to others. Stoic integrity is not blind obstinacy. It's about having a core set of principles that are non-negotiable, while remaining open to discussion on the methods to achieve them. Cato debated fiercely, but he did not betray his values for convenience. In our own lives, this translates to knowing your red lines. What is the one thing you would never do for a promotion? What comment would you never make to fit in? What practice would you never engage in, even if it meant losing a client? Defining these boundaries beforehand is how you build your own inner citadel. When the pressure mounts, you don't have to deliberate in the moment. You simply retreat to your pre-established principles and act from that place of strength. Your values become the boss and you simply follow orders. So let's bring this history lesson into the present. Look around your own professional landscape. Who is the person known for their unshakable integrity? It might not be the most charismatic leader or the highest earner. It might be the quiet colleague who always gives honest feedback, even when it's difficult to hear. It could be the competitor who wins business fairly and speaks well of others, even in a cutthroat industry. This modern Cato shows us that a life built on principle is not a life of deprivation, but one of profound freedom. They are free from the anxiety of maintaining a false image, free from the fear of being exposed, and free from the regret of compromised choices. Their legacy isn't a list of accomplishments on a LinkedIn profile, but a lasting impression of trust and character on everyone they meet. Their example challenges us to ask not what we achieved, but how we achieved it and who we had to become in the process. Do you ever find yourself saying yes when every fiber of your being is screaming no, simply because you're afraid of disappointing someone or facing their disapproval? That internal conflict, that quiet sacrifice of your own needs and desires on the altar of someone else's approval, is the very essence of people-pleasing. It's a trap so many of us fall into, often without even realizing it, and it's directly fueled by that deep-seated desire for praise and acceptance we've been discussing. On the surface, it looks like generosity or being a team player, but at its core, it's a form of self-betrayal that stands in direct opposition to the Stoic ideal of self-governance. You are effectively handing the remote control for your life over to anyone who might have an opinion, allowing them to dictate your actions, your time, and even your values. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus, who knew the bitter taste of slavery in his youth, issued a powerful warning about this very dynamic. He taught that we enslave ourselves not with chains, but with our own attachments to what other people think. He said, freedom is secured not by the fulfilling of one's desires, but by the removal of desire. In this context, the desire he's talking about is the desperate craving for external approval. When you constantly shape-shift to meet the expectations of others, you are no longer your own master. Your boss's potential disapproval becomes your taskmaster, your friend's potential annoyance becomes your warden, and the stranger's potential criticism becomes your judge. You live in a prison of your own making, constantly looking outward for cues on how to behave instead of listening to the inner compass of your own reason and virtue. This is the ultimate contradiction. In a desperate attempt to be liked and praised, you lose the very self that is worthy of respect. We see this play out in countless subtle ways in our daily lives. In a work setting, it's the employee who volunteers for yet another low-priority project because they can't bear to say no to their manager, even though their own critical work suffers and their personal life evaporates. They are trading their authentic capacity for the fleeting praise of being seen as dedicated. In a social context, it's the person who laughs along with a joke they find offensive, or who remains silent when a value of theirs is being mocked, all to maintain the harmony of the group and avoid the social risk of disapproval. They are sacrificing their integrity for the cheap currency of belonging. Even in family dynamics, it's the adult who continues to follow a parent's dream for their career instead of pursuing their own passion, forever seeking a validation that may never come in the form they hope for. In each case, the person is choosing the temporary comfort of conformity over the lasting peace of authenticity. So how do we begin to dismantle this pattern? The Stoic solution isn't about becoming selfish or rude. It's about returning to the foundation of your values and learning the art of setting boundaries from that solid ground. It starts with a simple but profound act of clarity, getting crystal clear on what you truly value. Is it integrity, courage, family, growth? Once you know what your non-negotiable principles are, you can begin to make decisions based on them, rather than based on a predicted reaction from someone else. A boundary, in the Stoic sense, is simply a statement of what you will and will not do to remain in alignment with your virtues. It's saying, I value my health, so I will not stay late at work every night. Or, I value honesty, so I will not agree with an opinion I find unjust. This isn't about controlling the other person's behavior. It's about governing your own. You are not saying, you must stop asking me to work late. You are saying, based on my values, my answer is no. The other person's reaction, their disappointment, their frustration, is then rightly classified as an external, outside your control. It is their weather to manage, not yours. This shift requires practice and courage, and it often begins with small, low-stakes situations. It's telling a friend you can't make their dinner party without feeling the need to invent an elaborate excuse. It's respectfully offering a dissenting viewpoint in a meeting instead of nodding along with the consensus. Each time you do this, you are withdrawing your investment from the volatile stock market of external approval and reinvesting it in the steady, reliable bond of self-trust. You are sending a powerful message to your own psyche. My worth is not for sale. It cannot be bought with praise or diminished by disapproval. It is inherent, built upon the bedrock of my conscious choices. This is how you reclaim your sovereignty. This is how you stop being a people pleaser and start being a person of principle. What if you treated praise like a weather report, interesting to note, but not something to take personally or build your entire day around? This subtle but profound shift in perspective is at the heart of a Stoic approach to external feedback. It's the move from seeing a compliment as emotional fuel that you desperately need to run on, to viewing it as a piece of neutral data that you can choose to analyze or simply file away. A weather report tells you it's going to be sunny. You might decide to go for a walk, but you don't take the sunshine as a personal affirmation of your worth. Similarly, a weather report of rain might lead you to carry an umbrella, but it doesn't ruin your entire sense of self. Praise and criticism can be processed with the same detached curiosity. They are simply data points about the external environment, not verdicts on your soul. This cognitive reframing is incredibly powerful for reducing emotional volatility. When praise is processed as validation, it creates a high, a dopamine hit that we quickly become addicted to, constantly seeking the next fix. But that high is always followed by the inevitable crash of anxiety, the fear that we might not receive it again, or the deflation when the next piece of feedback is neutral or negative. It's an emotional roller coaster. When you learn to see praise as data, you step off that ride. You receive the information calmly, assess its utility, and decide what, if anything, to do with it. Your emotional center of gravity remains stable because it is no longer tied to the fluctuating opinions of others. This isn't suppression of joy, it's the cultivation of a deeper, more sustainable calm that isn't thrown off balance by every gust of wind. Consider a project manager presenting a new strategy to her executive team. She's worked on it for months. After her presentation, the CEO says, "This is absolutely brilliant, Sarah. One of the best strategic plans I've seen in years." The old, validation-seeking mindset would have her floating out of the room, her ego inflated, her sense of success completely hitched to that one piece of praise. She's now set up for a major crash if the next phase encounters hurdles. The stoic-minded project manager, however, hears the same words and processes them as data. She might think, the data point is that the CEO responded very positively to the overall strategic vision. That is useful information. It suggests I effectively communicated the high-level concept. She appreciates the compliment, but she doesn't internalize it as a definition of her brilliance. Her very next thought might be, I wonder what specific elements resonated most. Are there potential weaknesses in the execution plan that we still need to brainstorm? Her focus remains on the work itself, on improvement and execution rather than on basking in the glow of approval. The praise becomes a tool for refinement, not a drug for her ego. This approach is equally transformative for handling criticism. A piece of negative feedback is no longer a personal attack to be feared. It's simply another data point, often containing invaluable information. If a colleague says, "This section of the report was confusing," the Stoic doesn't hear, "You are a bad writer." They hear the data. There is a confusion point in section 3. This allows them to calmly investigate the source of the confusion without becoming defensive or despondent. Was the data unclear? Was the formatting poor? Was the argument illogical? The feedback is stripped of its emotional sting and becomes a pragmatic tool for making the work better. The goal shifts from protecting a fragile ego to pursuing a better outcome. I encourage you to actively practice this reframing in the coming days. The next time someone pays you a genuine compliment, whether on your work, your appearance, or your character, pause for just a moment before you automatically absorb it. Mentally label it. Say to yourself, I am receiving a data point of positive feedback. Notice the words themselves. Acknowledge the kindness or observation of the person giving it. But then consciously choose not to let it define your mood or your self-assessment. See if you can hold it lightly, as interesting information about how your actions are being perceived in the world. This isn't about becoming ungrateful or cold. It's about reclaiming your emotional sovereignty. The greatest benefit of this practice is the clarity it brings to your decision-making. When you are no longer making choices primarily to elicit praise, you are free to make choices based on what is actually effective, meaningful, and aligned with your values. So let's end with a question that can truly reshape your path forward. How might your biggest goals and ambitions change if you began to see all praise and all criticism merely as data points to inform your journey, rather than as rewards or punishments meant to judge your worth? Before the sun had even risen over Rome, Marcus Aurelius would retreat into the quiet corners of his mind. He didn't reach for a scroll of others' thoughts or call for advisors to tell him what to do. Instead, he sat in stillness, preparing himself for the day ahead by revisiting his own principles and duties. In his personal writings, he advised himself to begin each morning by saying, "I shall meet today with busybodies, with the ungrateful, with the arrogant, with the deceitful, with the envious, with the unsocial. All these things happen to them by reason of their ignorance of what is good and evil. But I, understanding the nature of the good that it is beautiful, and of the evil that it is ugly, cannot be injured by any of them." This wasn't a meditation on how to win their approval. It was a grounding in his own purpose, a conscious uncoupling from the need for their praise or the fear of their scorn. He was building an inner fortress each day before he ever stepped out into the noisy world of imperial politics. This practice of intentional solitude is one of the most powerful yet underutilized tools in the Stoic toolkit. It's not about isolation or misanthropy. It's about creating a sacred space for uninterrupted inner dialogue. In that quiet, you are able to hear your own thoughts above the relentless static of external voices. You can ask yourself the questions that truly matter, not "what will they think," but "what do I believe," not "how can I be praised," but "how can I act with virtue today?" This is how you cultivate the muscle of self-trust. When you constantly outsource your thinking to podcasts, social media feeds, and the opinions of your peers, you never develop your own inner compass. You become a satellite forever orbiting around other people's signals, dependent on them for direction. Stoic silence is the practice of turning off the receivers and learning to navigate by your own stars. Now contrast this with the deafening noise of our modern pursuit of social validation. From the moment we wake up, we are bombarded with opportunities to compare, to perform, and to seek external affirmation. We curate our lives for public consumption, often living through a lens, wondering how our experiences will be perceived before we've even fully experienced them. The morning ritual for many is no longer a moment of quiet reflection, but a frantic scroll through a digital feed of everyone else's highlights, immediately setting a benchmark for our own day that is based entirely outside of ourselves. This constant external reference point erodes our ability to know what we truly want, what we genuinely value, and who we are when no one is watching. The Stoic practice of silence is the antidote to this, a deliberate withdrawal from the marketplace of opinions to rediscover the currency of your own soul. Integrating this into your life doesn't require hours of secluded meditation. It can begin with a simple commitment to a daily quiet time. This could be 5 minutes with your morning coffee, intentionally not looking at your phone, but instead looking inward. It could be a short walk without headphones, allowing your own thoughts to be the soundtrack. The format is less important than the intention, to create a buffer zone between you and the world, a daily appointment with yourself. In this space, you can perform a modern version of the Stoic morning meditation. Ask yourself, what are my intentions for today? What virtues will guide my actions? What challenges might I face, and how can I meet them with integrity rather than a desire for approval? This isn't about planning your to-do list, it's about aligning your character. You are reconnecting with your personal values, not the values the algorithm is trying to sell you. This practice ultimately leads you to a profound and liberating question, one that can reshape your relationship with the world. What would your inner voice say if it didn't care about being heard by others? If you knew that your thoughts would never be posted, tweeted, or shared, what truths would they hold? What creative ideas would you explore if they were destined only for you? What convictions would you hold if you never had to defend them in public? This question isn't about rejecting community or conversation. It's about purifying your motivations. It's about discovering the thoughts you think when you are truly alone, because those are the thoughts that define your unfiltered, unvarnished self. When you strengthen that inner dialogue, you carry a core of unshakable certainty with you into the social world. You can engage with others not from a place of neediness, seeking their validation to complete you, but from a place of wholeness, offering your genuine self as a gift to the conversation. The less you need praise, the less criticism can shake you. This isn't a theory, it's a practical, psychological reality. When your sense of self-worth is no longer tied to the approval of others, you build an emotional buffer that absorbs the shocks of setbacks, rejections, and failures without collapsing your entire inner world. The Stoics had a beautiful word for this state of unshakable calm, apatheia. Now, that might sound like apathy to our modern ears, but it means something far more profound. It's not about being emotionless or numb. It's about achieving freedom from the destructive, turbulent extremes of emotion that are triggered by our attachments to things outside our control. It is the deep, steady tranquility that comes from placing your security in your own character and efforts, rather than in the fickle opinions and outcomes of the external world. Consider the mindset of a truly dedicated Olympic athlete. Their entire life is a monument to discipline and effort. They wake up before dawn, they push their body to its absolute limits, they follow a strict regimen of diet and rest, all for a shot at a medal. Now, an athlete who is attached to praise and external validation is solely focused on that gold medal. Their self-worth is hitched to that single outcome on a single day. If they win, they are euphoric, their ego soars, and they feel validated. But if they lose, if they come in fourth place by 100th of a second, that same attachment to the external prize becomes a source of crushing despair, a feeling that all their effort was worthless, that they themselves are a failure. The Stoic athlete, however, approaches the exact same games with a completely different metric for success. Their primary focus is on their performance. Did they train with full commitment? Did they execute their technique to the best of their ability on the day? Did they leave everything they had out on the field? If the answer is yes, then they can stand in the arena with their head held high, regardless of the color of the medal placed around their neck. The victory ceremony is a pleasant potential bonus, but it is not the source of their pride. Their pride comes from knowing they mastered themselves. This inner stance doesn't make them less competitive, it makes them more resilient. A loss is not a personal indictment, it's data. It's feedback on what to improve for next time. Their emotional state remains stable, focused, and ready for the next challenge because it was never built on the shaky foundation of a specific outcome. This principle translates directly into our everyday lives when we face professional rejection or personal criticism. Imagine you apply for your dream job. You prepare meticulously for the interviews, you present your authentic self, and you feel you did everything within your power to make a strong case. The old praise-dependent mindset would have you waiting for that phone call with bated breath, your entire sense of professional worth hanging in the balance. If the offer comes, you're elated. If the rejection email arrives, you're devastated, questioning your entire skill set and career path. The Stoic approach allows you to decouple your self-assessment from that result. You can acknowledge the disappointment without being defined by it. you can say, "I controlled my preparation and my performance. The hiring committee's decision was based on a million factors. I cannot control internal politics, a specific skill they needed that I don't have, even just the mood of the interviewer that day." This perspective allows you to absorb the setback, learn from any available feedback, and move forward with your dignity and self-belief intact. The rejection becomes an event that happened to you, not a judgment of who you are. This kind of emotional resilience is a skill forged in the smaller moments long before the big setbacks hit. It's the practice of consciously uncoupling your mood from the daily micro-validation we all seek. It's finishing a workout and feeling the intrinsic satisfaction of having completed it, rather than waiting for a friend to notice your progress. It's cooking a meal and enjoying the process and the result, without needing your family to rave about it to feel it was worthwhile. Each time you do this, you are strengthening your emotional core. You are building a life where your joy and your sense of accomplishment are generated from within, making you infinitely less vulnerable to the storms of external opinion. So take a moment to look back on your own journey. Recall a time when detaching from a specific desired outcome actually made you more resilient. Maybe it was going into a difficult conversation focused only on being honest rather than on being liked, which gave you the courage to speak your truth. Perhaps it was working on a project you deeply believed in, even when others were skeptical, which allowed you to persevere through challenges. Now hold that feeling. That is the blueprint. How can you apply that exact same mindset, that same focus on internal process over external reward, to your relationship with praise? How can you start performing for your own inner scorecard, and in doing so, build an unshakable calm that no amount of criticism can ever truly disturb? True happiness comes from within, says Seneca, not from applause. This idea of a self-generated, enduring joy was what the ancient Greeks called eudaimonia, and the Stoics saw it as the highest aim of human life. It's not a fleeting emotion or a temporary high. It's a profound sense of flourishing that arises from living in accordance with your nature as a rational, social being. For the Stoics, our nature is to act virtuously. Therefore, the deepest and most reliable joy is the quiet satisfaction that comes from knowing you have acted with wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline. It's the internal reward for a job well done by your own standards, a feeling that is completely independent of trophies, titles, or the thunderous approval of a crowd. This is the essence of intrinsic motivation, doing something because the activity itself is its own reward, because it feels meaningful and right to you, regardless of whether it ever draws a single eye or earns a single word of praise. We can all find glimpses of this in our own lives, often in the activities we pursue purely for the love of them. Think about the gardener who spends hours tending to her plants, her hands in the soil, completely absorbed in the quiet rhythm of nurturing growth. There is no audience for this performance. The reward is in the doing itself, the peace of the morning, the satisfaction of seeing a seedling thrive, the simple connection to nature. Or consider the woodworker in his garage workshop, meticulously shaping a piece of wood into a beautiful object. He may never sell it or even show it to anyone. The joy is in the focus of the craft, the solving of problems, the transformation of raw material into something purposeful and beautiful through his own skill and patience. These are not activities pursued for external validation. They are acts of intrinsic motivation that generate their own fulfillment from within. They are modern, everyday examples of Stoic eudaimonia in practice. Now contrast this deep, steady-state fulfillment with the dopamine-driven pursuit of external validation that defines so much of our modern experience. Social media platforms are engineered to be slot machines for praise. We post a photo or a thought and pull the lever, waiting for the payoff of likes, comments, and shares. Each notification delivers a tiny hit of dopamine, a neurochemical reward that feels good in the moment but is incredibly fleeting. This creates a cycle of craving and consumption that is the absolute opposite of Stoic joy. We are not motivated by the intrinsic value of the activity, the creativity of taking a photo, the clarity of articulating a thought, but by the extrinsic reward of the social validation we hope it will bring. This turns us into approval addicts, constantly needing our next fix of external recognition to feel okay, and inevitably experiencing crashes of anxiety or emptiness when the validation is slow to come or doesn't meet our expectations. The pursuit of likes is a hollow substitute for the authentic joy of creation. This distinction is crucial because it determines not only our happiness but the very direction of our lives. When we are driven by intrinsic motivation, our compass is internal. We are guided by our genuine interests, our curiosities, and our values. We choose paths that feel meaningful to us, and the fulfillment we find along the way is sustainable and ours to keep. When we are driven by the pursuit of praise, our compass is spinning, constantly recalibrating to point toward whatever we believe will win us the most approval from others. We might choose a prestigious career we hate, stay in a relationship that looks good from the outside, or silence our true opinions to fit in. We are building a life designed for an audience, and in the process, we lose touch with the one person whose opinion actually matters for our lasting happiness, ourselves. So I want to invite you to do a small but powerful audit of your own life. Bring to mind the activities that you lose yourself in, the projects you work on that make time stand still. What do you love to do simply for the doing of it? It might be something grand like writing music, or something simple like organizing a closet, taking a long walk, or cooking a new recipe. In those moments, you are not performing for anyone. There is no gold star waiting at the end. The reward is the state of flow itself, the engagement, the quiet hum of being fully alive and present in an activity. That feeling is a direct line to your intrinsic motivation, to the source of Stoic joy that exists within you, completely separate from the applause of the outside world. It is a reminder that you contain your own validation. The final and perhaps most important question to sit with is this: what is that one thing that makes you feel truly, vibrantly alive, even when you are certain that absolutely no one is watching? Try this simple but powerful exercise. Start a praise journal. The next time someone pays you a compliment, whether it's your boss acknowledging a presentation or a friend admiring your new haircut, take a moment later that day to write it down. But here's the crucial Stoic twist: you're not journaling to collect and savor these moments like trophies. You're journaling to objectify them, to hold them up to the light of your reason and see them for what they truly are: external events that have no inherent power to alter your fundamental worth. The act of transferring praise from the fleeting moment of hearing it to the permanent page allows you to examine it with a detached curiosity, like a scientist studying a specimen. You are creating a space between the event and your emotional reaction to it, which is the very space where Stoic freedom is found. This practice works because it engages the rational part of your mind to process something that typically only touches the emotional part. When praise remains as just a feeling, it can inflate our ego or create a dependency. But when we force ourselves to articulate it in writing and then reflect on it rationally, we demystify it. We see a compliment like, "You're so smart," not as a profound truth about our identity, but as a string of words someone chose to say, based on their own perceptions and biases at a specific moment in time. The journal becomes a tool for grounding, a way to remind yourself that your character was intact before the praise was given, and it remains intact afterward. The praise didn't create your value, it merely commented on it, accurately or not. To get the most from this practice, use specific, probing prompts that guide your reflection toward Stoic principles. After writing down the praise you received, ask yourself questions like, did this praise actually change my worth or my character in any way? This forces you to confront the reality that your virtue is determined by your actions, not others' opinions. Another powerful prompt is, how would I have acted in that situation if I knew for certain I would receive no recognition or praise for it? This helps you uncover your true motivations and separate action from reward. You might also ask, is this praise based on something within my control, like my effort, or on something outside it, like a natural talent? This reinforces the dichotomy of control, helping you take pride in your effort while remaining indifferent to the natural advantages you may have been born with. The real magic and the most fascinating part of this exercise reveals itself over time. When you consistently document these moments of praise without immediately attaching an emotional charge to them, you begin to notice patterns. You might see that you feel a much bigger boost from praise in areas where you feel insecure, or that you actively seek out certain types of validation from specific people. You could notice that praise for superficial things affects you just as much as praise for your hard work, revealing a disconnect between your values and your cravings. These patterns are not indictments, they are incredibly valuable data about your own psychology. They show you where you are still handing over the keys to your self-esteem, where your inner citadel might have a weak spot in the wall. This awareness is the first and most critical step toward fortifying it. So, after a week or two of this practice, look back over your entries and ask yourself with honest curiosity, what do these collected moments of applause truly tell me about myself, and what do they tell me about the work I still have to do to become truly free? Seneca once offered a warning that cuts as sharply today as it did 2,000 years ago, calling flattery poison to the soul. He wasn't just being dramatic, he was pointing to a fundamental Stoic distinction that separates what builds character from what corrodes it. The Stoics drew a clear line between genuine feedback, which is rooted in truth and offered for your betterment, and flattery, which is designed to manipulate, to curry favor, or to soothe the ego for the flatterer's own gain. One is a tool for growth, however difficult it might be to hear. The other is a sweet-tasting poison that slowly weakens your ability to see yourself and the world clearly. The Stoic values the honest critique from a trusted mentor, even if it stings, because it provides a clearer mirror to hold up to their actions. They treat the empty compliment, the exaggerated praise, with deep suspicion, because it is a distorted mirror that shows only what someone wants you to see. History is littered with the wreckage of those who surrounded themselves with sycophants rather than truth-tellers. Consider the lavish courts of ancient Rome or the palaces of Renaissance Europe, where power was absolute and often isolated. A ruler who demanded constant admiration and punished dissent created a vacuum of yes men. These courtiers learned that their survival and advancement depended not on speaking hard truths, but on telling the powerful exactly what they wanted to hear. They would applaud foolish military campaigns, extravagant spending, and unjust laws, all while the foundations of the state grew weaker. The downfall was often not an external invasion, but an internal rot that began with the toxic, self-serving language of flattery. The leader, deprived of honest counsel, lost touch with reality, making catastrophic errors in judgment that a single voice of reason could have prevented. This ancient dynamic plays out with startling similarity in the modern workplace. Office sycophancy might not determine the fate of empires, but it certainly shapes careers and company cultures. It's the colleague who endlessly compliments the boss's every idea in meetings, never offering a constructive counterpoint. It's the employee who takes credit for team successes and constantly drops their connection to leadership, using association as a currency instead of competence. This behavior creates an environment where style is valued over substance, where perception matters more than performance. For the person on the receiving end, it feels good in the moment, who doesn't enjoy being told they're brilliant, but over time it becomes a gilded cage. If everyone around you is constantly agreeing and applauding, you are effectively being deprived of the crucial information you need to make good decisions and to grow. You are being managed, not led, and your own skills begin to atrophy from lack of challenge. Cultivating the discernment to tell the difference between useful feedback and empty flattery is therefore a critical Stoic skill for self-preservation and integrity. It starts with developing a keen ear for language. Flattery is often vague, grandiose, and focused on your innate qualities rather than your actions. It sounds like you're a genius or you're just naturally amazing at this. Genuine feedback, in contrast, is usually specific, actionable, and focused on your effort or the work itself. It sounds like the way you structured that argument in the second section was really effective because it made the complex data easy to understand. One is a label, the other is a tool. Another key differentiator is the source. Consider the person offering the words. Do they have a pattern of offering balanced perspectives, or do their compliments always seem to arrive when they need something from you? A Stoic learns to value the critic who has proven they want them to succeed more than they want to be liked. Ultimately, the strongest defense against the poison of flattery is the very inner citadel we've been building. When your self-worth is rooted in your own virtuous efforts and not in the opinions of others, you become less hungry for constant praise. You stop needing the sugary hit of validation that the flatterer offers, and you become more adept at sniffing out its hollow ring. You can receive a compliment graciously without letting it define you, and you can welcome constructive criticism without feeling attacked. You begin to seek out and cherish the people brave enough to tell you the truth, because you understand that their honesty is the real gift. It is the whetstone that sharpens your character, while flattery is merely the rust that slowly weakens it. Stoics teach that the best deeds are often done in secret, not for the audience of others, but for the audience of one's own conscience. This is the essence of Stoic humility, a quiet, unassuming commitment to doing what is right because it is right, and for no other reason. It's the understanding that virtue is its own reward, and that the need to have our goodness witnessed and celebrated by others actually dilutes its purity. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the known world, constantly reminded himself of this in his private meditations. He wrote, "A man, when he has done a good act, does not call out for others to come and see, but he goes on to another act, as a vine goes on to produce again the grapes in season." His advice was to be like the vine, naturally, quietly, and consistently fruitful without any fanfare. The fruitfulness is the point, not the announcement of the harvest. This philosophy stands in such stark contrast to the modern culture of performative goodness we often see today, particularly on social media. We've all seen the posts, the carefully framed photo of a charitable donation, the video of someone helping a homeless person that just happens to be filmed, the public declaration of a good deed that feels less like a sharing of joy and more like a request for validation. This phenomenon, often called humble bragging, is the absolute antithesis of Stoic humility. It's not that the act itself is bad, it's that the motivation has been corrupted. The primary goal shifts from the act of helping to the act of being seen helping. The virtue is no longer in the deed itself, but in the social capital it generates. The Stoic would argue that this externalizes your moral compass. You are no longer checking your actions against your own inner standard of virtue, but against the potential for likes and comments. You are, in a sense, selling your integrity for a very cheap price. The most beautiful acts of kindness are often the ones that leave no trace, the ones that are completely untethered from any expectation of reward or recognition. Think about the anonymous donor who pays off a stranger's medical debt or covers a year of school lunches for children in need. Their impact is monumental, but their identity remains a mystery. Their reward is the private knowledge of the relief they've provided, a satisfaction that is profound and complete in itself, but you don't have to be wealthy to practice this. It can be as simple as noticing a colleague is overwhelmed and quietly taking a task off their plate without mentioning it to anyone. It could be shoveling the driveway of an elderly neighbor before they wake up, leaving them to wonder about their kind mystery helper. It's the unseen compliment you pay to a friend who is struggling with their self-esteem, offered in a private moment rather than in a public forum for others to admire your support. These anonymous acts are like watering the roots of a tree hidden underground. No one sees the nourishment happening, but the strength and vitality it produces are undeniable. I want to offer you a small challenge, a practical experiment in Stoic humility. Sometime in the next 24 hours, I encourage you to perform one small, virtuous act and make a conscious, deliberate choice to tell absolutely no one about it. Don't post it, don't hint at it, don't even keep a mental tally for yourself to feel superior about later. Just do it and then let it go. It could be as simple as picking up litter on your walk without posting a picture of it, or leaving a book you loved in a public place with a note inside for a stranger to find. Pay for the coffee of the person behind you in the drive-through and drive away before they can thank you. The goal is to sit with the experience of the act itself, completely divorced from any external reaction. Notice the quiet feeling that arises within you when you contribute to the world without attaching your name to the contribution. There's a unique and powerful sense of freedom in that moment, the freedom of knowing that your goodness is not a performance, but a fundamental, inseparable part of who you are, whether anyone is watching or not. Epictetus offered a brilliant twist on the pursuit of knowledge when he suggested that it is far better to be wise than to be proved wise. This single idea cuts to the heart of a hidden form of attachment, the desperate need to be seen as right, to have our opinions validated and our intellectual superiority acknowledged. We often enter conversations not with the open curiosity of a student, but with the armored defensiveness of a lawyer building a case for our own brilliance. We listen for gaps in the other person's argument we can exploit. We rehearse our rebuttals while they're still speaking, and we measure the success of the interaction by whether we emerged victorious, having forced the other person to concede our point. This isn't a search for truth, it's a performance for an imaginary audience, and the prize we're seeking is the hollow applause of being right. This need to win arguments is often a deeply disguised hunger for praise. We aren't just defending a point of view, we are defending our self-image as an intelligent, competent person. The problem is that this posture makes genuine growth almost impossible. When your primary goal is to prove you're already wise, you close yourself off to the very thing that creates wisdom, the ability to learn something new. You can't absorb new information if you're constantly filtering it through the lens of how it can be used to reinforce your existing position. Real learning requires humility, the willingness to admit that your current understanding might be incomplete or even entirely wrong. It demands that you prioritize the expansion of your perspective over the protection of your ego. An argument approached as a collaborative exploration, where the goal is for all parties to reach a clearer understanding of the truth, is infinitely more productive than a debate treated as a gladiatorial combat where only one person can leave standing. Imagine two colleagues locked in a heated debate over the best strategy for a new project. Colleague A is attached to being right. Their body is tense, their mind is racing to counter every point, and their entire focus is on crafting the perfect zinger that will definitively win the argument and earn them the admiration of everyone in the room. Colleague B, however, has internalized Epictetus' lesson. They are detached from the outcome of being seen as the smartest person present. They listen deeply, not just to rebut, but to understand the underlying concerns and the potential merits of the other perspective. They might say things like, "That's an interesting angle I hadn't considered," or "Help me understand how your approach would solve this potential problem." For colleague B, the true victory isn't in defeating the other person. It's in the possibility that together they might synthesize an even better third strategy that neither had conceived of alone. The first approach seeks the praise of winning, the second seeks the practical reward of a better outcome. This principle becomes even more crucial and more difficult in our personal relationships. How many family dinners have been soured by a political argument that nobody won? How many friendships have been strained by a stubborn insistence on proving a point about something that ultimately doesn't matter? In these intimate settings, the need to be right is often a toxin that poisons connection. The Stoic question here is not, "Am I correct?" but "What is my goal?" If your goal is to maintain a loving, supportive relationship, then often the most virtuous and wise choice is to let the need for validation go entirely. Choosing kindness over correctness isn't about being a pushover or abandoning your principles. It's about recognizing that the health of the relationship is a higher value than winning a momentary intellectual skirmish. It's understanding that you can be right in your facts and utterly wrong in your approach, causing damage that far outweighs the satisfaction of being validated. This is the ultimate freedom that comes from detaching from the need to be right, the freedom to connect, to learn, and to choose peace. It's the realization that your worth is not contingent on your win-loss record in life's endless debates. You can disagree without being disagreeable. You can hold strong convictions without needing to bludgeon others with them. And you can find a deeper, more quiet confidence in knowing that a truly wise person doesn't need to constantly prove they are wise. Their curiosity, their openness, and their growth do that for them. So let's turn this inward for a moment of honest reflection. When did you last consciously prioritize truly understanding another person's perspective over the temptation to dismantle it and prove your own? Can you recall a time when you let go of being applauded for your cleverness and instead chose the quiet, more rewarding path of connection? If you don't need others' praise, you can stop demanding perfection of yourself. This is one of the most liberating side effects of Stoic detachment. It doesn't just change your relationship with the world, it fundamentally changes your relationship with yourself. When you are no longer performing for an external audience, you can finally release the crushing pressure of your own internal critic. The Stoic philosophy of self-acceptance isn't about making excuses or lowering your standards. It's about shifting your focus from flawless outcomes to honorable effort. The ancient Stoics understood that we control our actions and our intentions, but we rarely control the final results. Therefore, the only rational measure of your worth is the quality of your attempt, the virtue you bring to the endeavor, not the trophy or the praise it may or may not produce. Think about the last time you made a significant mistake. Perhaps you sent an email with a glaring error to the entire company, or you spoke harshly in a moment of frustration with someone you love. The common praise-conditioned reaction is to fall into a spiral of self-flagellation. Your inner monologue becomes a brutal courtroom where you are the prosecutor, judge, and jury, condemning yourself for your failure. You might ruminate for days, replaying the scene, convinced that this error defines you as incompetent or unworthy. This isn't motivation, it's self-punishment, and it's often fueled by the subconscious fear that others will now see you as flawed and withdraw their approval. But the Stoic approach offers a radically different path to recovery. A Stoic would certainly acknowledge the mistake. To ignore it would be foolish, but they would then immediately apply the dichotomy of control. They would ask, what was within my control in that situation? Perhaps it was their preparation, their choice of words, or their emotional regulation. They would then focus all their energy on learning from that part, on making a wiser effort next time. The outcome, the offended colleague, the missed opportunity, is released as an external event. The self-talk shifts from I am a failure to I acted poorly in that moment, and I can choose to act more virtuously now. This is where Stoicism meets self-compassion in a beautifully practical way. Marcus Aurelius wrote advice to himself that we can all borrow: be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. Yet so many of us get this backwards. We are endlessly forgiving of others' foibles but hold ourselves to an impossible standard of infallibility. The Stoic adjustment is to begin treating yourself with the same patience and understanding you would readily offer a dear friend. If a friend came to you after a professional setback, you wouldn't call them a worthless failure. You would likely point out their strengths, remind them of their past successes, and encourage them to see this as a single event, not their entire story. You would treat them as a fellow human being, deserving of patience and a chance to try again. Stoic self-acceptance is about becoming that friend to yourself. It's about recognizing that you are a work in progress, navigating a complex world with limited information, and that sometimes you will stumble. Your value isn't diminished by the stumble. It is demonstrated by how you choose to get back up and what you learn from the fall. This entire mindset hinges on a subtle but profound reorientation of what you value most. Do you value the appearance of perfection, or do you value the courage of the attempt? Do you value the gold star, or do you value the growth? When you value attempt over approval, your internal dialogue softens from a critical shout to a coaching whisper. Instead of asking did they like it, you start asking did I do my best. Instead of fretting what if I fail, you can wonder what will I learn if I try. This shift doesn't make you less ambitious, it makes you more resilient. It frees you to take bigger creative risks, to voice unconventional ideas, and to pursue mastery for its own sake, precisely because you have released the terror of not being instantly perfect and universally applauded. Your energy is no longer siphoned off by anxiety and self-criticism. It is channeled entirely into the focused, peaceful, and powerful work of showing up and giving your best effort, regardless of the noise. Stoicism isn't about isolation, it's about connecting through virtue, not validation. This is a crucial point that often gets misunderstood. The image of the Stoic as a solitary, unfeeling figure, detached from the world and its people, is a complete misreading of the philosophy. The Stoics were deeply engaged citizens, fathers, brothers, and friends. Their detachment was from the dysfunctional aspects of social interaction, the gossip, the flattery, the desperate seeking of status, not from connection itself. Their goal was to engage with others from a place of wholeness and self-sufficiency, offering their best selves to the community without needing the community to reflect that goodness back to them in the form of praise. It's the difference between a beggar offering a hand and a king offering a hand. The gesture might look the same, but the energy behind it is entirely different. One is giving from a place of abundance, the other from a place of need. We can look to history for a beautiful example of this in action. In ancient Athens, there was a place called the Stoa Poikile, or the Painted Porch. This was where the philosopher Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, would meet with his students to discuss and debate ideas. It wasn't a private club for the elite. It was a public colonnade open to anyone who wanted to walk up and engage. The discussions that happened there were not about winning arguments or proving intellectual superiority. The feedback exchanged was designed for one purpose only: mutual improvement. It was a collaborative workshop for the soul, where individuals could present their thoughts and actions for examination by their peers, not to be told they were wonderful, but to be challenged and refined. The ego was checked at the entrance. The goal was to sharpen each other's thinking, to help one another see blind spots, and to collectively strive toward living more virtuous lives. The validation came from the rigor of the process itself, from the shared commitment to truth, not from empty compliments on a well-delivered speech. This ancient model finds a powerful echo in modern concepts like mastermind groups or ethical professional networks. Imagine a group of entrepreneurs who meet not to brag about their latest revenue numbers or to network for selfish gain, but to confidentially share their biggest challenges and ethical dilemmas. The value of such a group lies in its covenant of honesty. It's a space where you can say, "I really struggled with this decision, and I'm not sure I did the right thing," and receive thoughtful, constructive feedback from people who have your growth, not your flattery, as their goal. They won't just tell you what you want to hear to make you feel better. They will ask the difficult questions that help you clarify your own values and intentions. They are the modern-day companions in your stoa, the people who hold a mirror up to you not so you can admire your reflection, but so you can see yourself clearly, blemishes and all, and decide what you want to improve. This is the kind of community we should all seek to build and inhabit. It requires a shift in how we choose our peers and how we show up within those relationships. It means consciously moving away from connections that are transactional, based on what we can get from each other in terms of status or praise, and moving toward connections that are transformational, based on a shared commitment to character. It involves seeking out people who are not impressed by titles or wealth, but who are impressed by integrity, courage, and kindness. These are the people who will celebrate your successes without envy and will support you in your failures without pity. Most importantly, they will tell you the truth, even when it's uncomfortable, because they respect you too much to offer you anything less. So, let's bring this home with a moment of quiet inventory. Look around your own life at the people you turn to for advice and camaraderie. Who among them truly fits this description? Who in your life supports your growth without needing to praise you? Who is the person you can call after a mistake, knowing they won't minimize it or enable your excuses, but will help you unpack the lesson with clear-eyed compassion? And perhaps just as crucially, who are the people for whom you can play that same role? Being a part of a virtuous community isn't a passive act. It's an active practice of showing up for others with the same honesty and lack of judgment we hope to receive. It is in these circles of mutual respect and shared purpose that we find the strength to live out our Stoic principles, not in a vacuum, but in the beautifully messy, interconnected world we all share. What we really fear isn't the lack of praise, it's the active sting of disapproval, and the Stoics have a powerful answer for this very human anxiety. That deep-seated dread of being judged, found lacking, or publicly rejected is often the hidden engine behind our constant seeking of applause. We chase praise not just for the positive feeling it gives us, but as a shield against the piercing arrows of criticism. We believe that if we can accumulate enough approval, we'll be insulated from the pain of disapproval. But the Stoics recognize this as a flawed strategy because it leaves our emotional well-being perpetually vulnerable to the opinions of others, which we can never truly control. Their remedy was not to build a higher wall of praise, but to become invulnerable to the arrows themselves through a mental exercise called premeditation. This practice, known more fully as premeditatio malorum, involves deliberately and rationally envisioning the very criticism or failure we fear. It's not about cultivating pessimism, it's about inoculation. By exposing ourselves to the feared event in the safe space of our own minds, we rob it of its terrifying power and emotional surprise. When you walk onto a stage to give a speech, the fear of the audience's judgment can be paralyzing. Your heart races, your palms sweat, and your mind becomes consumed with what they might be thinking. But imagine if before you even wrote your speech, you sat down and calmly thought through the worst-case scenario. What if someone in the third row looks bored? What if my main point isn't applauded? What if I completely forget my lines? By visualizing these possibilities and accepting them as potential outcomes that you can survive, you perform a kind of psychological alchemy. The unknown monster of disapproval becomes a known, manageable set of circumstances. The fear transforms from a swirling fog of anxiety into a list of concrete eventualities, each with a potential response. This mental preparation allows you to shift your focus from the uncontrollable, the audience's reaction, to the entirely controllable, your message and your delivery. Your goal ceases to be, "I must make them like me," and becomes, "I will deliver this important information with clarity and conviction." The weight lifts. You are no longer performing for their validation. You are communicating from your own expertise and purpose. The occasional frown in the audience becomes just a data point, not a verdict on your worth. The forgotten line becomes a simple hurdle to smoothly step over, not a career-ending catastrophe. This is how premeditation builds courage, not by eliminating fear, but by making you familiar with its source and proving to yourself that you can handle it. The Stoics would argue that the discomfort of potential judgment is not something to avoid, but something to actively embrace as training for the soul. Just as an athlete willingly submits to the discomfort of lifting heavy weights to build physical strength, we can choose to step into situations where we might face disapproval to build our emotional resilience. Each time you voice an unpopular but ethical opinion in a meeting, each time you wear an outfit you love even if it's not trendy, each time you share a creative project despite the risk of negative comments, you are doing a rep for your inner citadel. You are teaching your nervous system that disapproval is not a threat to your existence, but merely an opinion you can observe and let pass. This is how you rewire a lifetime of conditioning that equates social rejection with danger. So let's bring this directly into your life with one final, potent question designed to bypass the fear and connect you with a deeper desire. What is that one thing you would start, create, or change today if you were completely freed from the fear of being judged by anyone? Detaching from praise isn't just calming, it's strategic for a fulfilling life. This shift in mindset moves from being a defensive tactic to an offensive strategy for building a life of profound meaning and resilience. When you are no longer emotionally yanked around by the approval or disapproval of others, you gain a steady hand on the tiller of your own existence. This isn't about becoming passive, it's about becoming powerfully directed by your own internal compass. The long-term benefits are not subtle. They ripple out into every corner of your life, creating a foundation of sustained peace that allows for clearer thinking, more courageous creativity, and far more authentic connections with the people around you. Imagine the sheer mental energy that is freed up when you stop constantly monitoring the social feedback loop. That background hum of anxiety, wondering what your boss thought of your comment in the meeting, rehearsing how to phrase an email to sound impressive, anxiously checking the likes on a post, all of that mental noise simply quietens down. This cognitive bandwidth is now available to you. It can be redirected into deep work, into genuine curiosity, into simply being present with your family at the end of the day. The reduction in anxiety is not just a feeling, it's a practical recalibration of your mental resources. You are no longer spending your emotional currency on trying to control things you cannot control, which means you have so much more to invest in the things you can, your actions, your attitudes, and your responses. This sustained peace becomes the default state from which you operate, not a fleeting vacation you take from a life of stress. With that calm clarity comes the capacity for significantly better decision-making. When your choices are no longer filtered through the lens of "what will people think," you can assess options based on what is actually true, effective, and aligned with your values. In a career context, this is transformative. Consider a leader who has detached their self-worth from the quarterly praise of their superiors. They are now free to make decisions that are best for the long-term health of the company and its employees, even if those decisions are unpopular in the short term. They might invest in employee training that won't show an immediate return, or they might kill a profitable project because it doesn't align with the company's core ethical values. This kind of integrity, consistently applied over time, builds an invaluable currency, trust. Colleagues and clients begin to understand that this person's word is their bond, that their recommendations are not swayed by a desire to please, but are grounded in principled judgment. That reputation for integrity becomes your most valuable professional asset, opening doors that mere ambition could never unlock. This same freedom supercharges creativity. The most innovative ideas are often the ones that break molds and defy convention. They are, by their very nature, unlikely to receive immediate praise because they are unfamiliar. An artist, a writer, or an entrepreneur who is hooked on external validation will unconsciously self-censor, shaping their creations toward what is already accepted and applauded. But when you create for the sake of the work itself, for the intrinsic joy of solving a problem or expressing an idea, you give yourself permission to explore the strange, the untested, and the truly original. Your creativity is no longer a performance, it becomes an exploration. This is where breakthrough ideas are born, not in the echo chamber of popular opinion, but in the quiet, private laboratory of a mind that is free to play and experiment without fear of judgment. Perhaps the most beautiful long-term benefit is the depth it brings to your relationships. When you interact with others from a place of self-sufficiency, you cease to see them as sources of validation. You are no longer engaging in a subtle transaction where you offer kindness in hopes of receiving admiration. This allows for a purer, more authentic connection. You can truly listen to a friend's struggles without steering the conversation back to your own accomplishments. You can offer love and support to your partner without keeping a hidden tally of whether it is being reciprocated in the exact way you expect. People feel this shift intuitively. They feel seen and heard for who they are, not for what they can give you in terms of ego stroking. This is how you build relationships that are based on mutual respect and genuine affection, rather than on the shaky ground of mutual neediness. These are the connections that endure through life's inevitable ups and downs, so I want to encourage you to take a moment and truly envision your life with this kind of freedom. Picture yourself moving through your days with a calm center that remains unshaken by criticism or inflated by flattery. See yourself making choices from a deep well of personal conviction, pursuing creative projects with bold abandon, and engaging in relationships that are free from hidden agendas. This is not a distant fantasy. It is a very attainable reality built through the daily practice of valuing your own character over the opinions of others. It ultimately forces a simple but profound question about the story you are writing with your life. When you reach the end of your days, what legacy do you want to leave behind? One defined by your fleeting popularity, or one anchored in your unwavering principles? Detaching from praise doesn't make you cold, it makes you free to appreciate genuinely. This is one of the most crucial distinctions to grasp on the Stoic path, because the goal is not to become a numb, unfeeling statue, indifferent to the world around you. The goal is to experience the full richness of human emotion without being enslaved by it. Think of it this way: a healthy, detached relationship with praise is like enjoying a beautiful sunset. You can be fully present, soaking in its warmth and colors, feeling a genuine sense of awe and gratitude for the experience. But when the sun dips below the horizon, you don't fall into despair, begging for it to come back. You appreciate the moment for what it was, and then you calmly turn your attention to the moon and the stars that follow. You enjoy the gift without becoming needy for it. This is the heart of Stoic detachment. It's about receiving life's offerings with an open hand, not a clenched fist. A clenched fist cannot easily receive a new gift, and it also tires quickly from holding on too tight. The vital difference lies between indifference and healthy engagement. Indifference is a state of not caring at all. It's apathetic, dismissive, and often rooted in cynicism or a lack of connection. Healthy engagement, which is the Stoic ideal, is the opposite. It means you care deeply, so deeply that you refuse to let your inner peace be contingent on external events. You are fully engaged in the dance of life, but you are not desperately clinging to your partner, afraid the music will stop. You are moving with the rhythm, appreciating the connection, yet completely able to dance on your own. This allows you to accept a compliment with full, gracious presence. You can look someone in the eye, hear the kindness in their words, and feel a sincere sense of connection and gratitude for their intention. The difference is that after the moment passes, you don't need to replay it in your mind to prop up your self-worth. You don't find yourself fishing for more compliments from them or others to recreate that feeling. The compliment was a pleasant moment of human connection, and you can let it be just that, a moment, not a lifeline. This directly counters one of the most persistent myths about Stoicism, that it is about suppressing emotions. This misconception paints the Stoic as a cold, robotic figure who must bottle up any feeling of joy or sadness. Nothing could be further from the truth. The Stoics weren't advocates for suppression, they were masters of discernment. They didn't try to stop the initial feel of an emotion, the flush of pride from praise, the sting of hurt from criticism. That initial spark is automatic and human. What they practiced was not letting that spark turn into a raging fire that burns down their entire inner village. They observed the feeling, acknowledged its presence, and then applied their rational faculty to decide what to do with it. They asked, is this feeling based on a rational judgment? Is it serving my virtue? Is it something within my control? This is the opposite of suppression. It's conscious processing. It's the difference between being swept away by a wave and learning to surf. The wave is still there, its power is still felt, but you are now navigating it with skill rather than being drowned by it. Let's make this practical with a simple example. Imagine your partner surprises you with a heartfelt compliment about your appearance. The old, dependency-driven response might be to light up with visible relief, immediately return 3 compliments in a row to keep the positive energy flowing, and then spend the rest of the day subtly trying to get them to say it again. Your mood becomes elevated, but it's a fragile elevation dependent on their continued validation. The Stoic informed response is entirely different. You hear the same words, you feel the same initial warm glow of being seen and appreciated, but instead of latching onto it, you simply receive it. You smile, make eye contact, and offer a genuine "thank you, that really means a lot to me." You allow yourself to feel the good feeling, but you understand that this feeling is a bonus, not the foundation of your self-image. Your sense of worth was intact before they spoke, and it remains intact afterward. This allows you to be truly present with them, rather than being lost in your own need. You can enjoy the compliment for the beautiful gesture it is, without placing the burden of your self-esteem on your partner's shoulders. So, how do we actually practice this? How can you train yourself to enjoy compliments without secretly needing them? It starts with a simple shift in your internal dialogue. The next time someone pays you a genuine compliment, try this mental exercise. Instead of immediately absorbing the words into your ego, pause for just half a second. Mentally reframe the compliment from "I am good" to "they are being kind," or "they noticed my effort." This tiny shift moves the focus from a statement about your permanent identity to an observation about a momentary, kind action on their part. It makes the moment about connection and appreciation, not validation. Then, consciously direct your attention to the feeling of gratitude. Feel thankful that this person took a moment to express something positive. This grounds the experience in a virtuous emotion, gratitude, rather than a vulnerable one, need. Finally, let it go. Don't cling to it. Trust that your worth is constant and does not fluctuate with the compliments or criticisms of the day. This is how you enjoy the sunshine without fearing the clouds, how you appreciate the music without dreading the silence. Incorporate these Stoic rituals to build your praise immunity muscle, turning philosophical principles into daily habits that rewire your relationship with external validation. These practices aren't about grand, sweeping changes. They are small, consistent actions designed to fortify your inner citadel one stone at a time, making detachment from praise a lived reality rather than a distant ideal. Let's start with the first ritual, a morning affirmation rooted in internal worth. Before you even check your phone or engage with the world, take just 60 seconds to look in the mirror and affirm your value based on what you control. This isn't about reciting empty platitudes. It's a conscious declaration of your sovereignty. You might say something like, "My worth is not for others to give or take. Today, I will measure my success by my effort and my integrity, not by the reactions of those around me." This sets a powerful intention for the day, grounding you in your own standards before the outside world has a chance to impose its own. As your day unfolds, the second ritual involves creating mindful pauses before you instinctively seek validation. This is about inserting a moment of conscious choice between the impulse to be praised and the action of seeking it. You feel the urge to share a minor accomplishment on social media. Pause. You consider fishing for a compliment from your partner about a meal you cooked. Pause. In that brief space, ask yourself a simple Stoic question. Why am I doing this? Is it to share genuine joy, or is it to fill a quiet need for external confirmation? This tiny hesitation is like a circuit breaker for your ego, preventing the automatic chase for approval and allowing you to act from a place of self-contained purpose. It's in these micro moments that true detachment is built, not in large, dramatic gestures. Consider the example of a dedicated teacher navigating the modern education system, where performance is often measured by standardized test scores and student evaluations. A teacher attached to praise would teach to the test, prioritizing lessons they know will be easily understood and liked, their mood soaring with positive reviews and plummeting with critical feedback. Their focus is on their teacher ratings, the external accolade. A Stoic teacher practicing these daily rituals would approach their vocation differently. Their morning affirmation reminds them that their worth is found in their commitment to student growth, not in the metrics. Throughout the day, they take a mindful pause before making a curricular decision, asking, Is this choice best for my students' long-term understanding, or is it designed to make me look good? Their focus remains on the internal benchmark of their effort and the virtue of their service. They can then receive student feedback, both positive and negative, as useful data about their methods, not as a final judgment on their value as an educator. This shift allows them to find deep, sustainable satisfaction in the quiet moments of breakthrough with a struggling student, a joy that no performance review could ever grant or take away. The final daily ritual is an evening review, but with a crucial Stoic twist. Instead of reviewing your accomplishments or accolades, you review your actions through the lens of virtue. The ancient Stoics called this practice meditatio, or meditation. Before sleep, take 5 minutes to reflect on your day. Ask yourself questions like, where did I act with courage today? Did I choose justice over convenience? When did I practice temperance and self-discipline? Did my actions align with my values, regardless of whether anyone noticed? This is not a performance evaluation for a promotion, it's an integrity check. You are systematically training your brain to look for evidence of your character in your actions, not evidence of your value in the opinions of others. This practice consistently reinforces the message that what truly matters is the content of your character, a thing that is always within your control to cultivate. The key to making these rituals stick is to start impossibly small. Don't try to implement all 3 at once with perfect fidelity. That path leads to frustration and abandonment. Choose just one. Perhaps this week you commit only to the mindful pause. Decide that once per day you will catch yourself before seeking validation and simply sit with that feeling for a few seconds. That's it. The following week you might add the morning affirmation. By starting small, you build the muscle of consistency, and the benefits will naturally compel you to go further. This isn't about perfection, it's about gentle, persistent direction. The goal is progress, not a flawless execution. So as you consider these pathways to a freer mind, which single ritual feels most accessible to you? The one you can gently weave into the fabric of your week to begin strengthening your immunity to the praise and blame of the world. And so we arrive at the heart of the matter, the transformative power that comes from this profound shift in perspective. This journey we've taken together through Stoic wisdom isn't about building walls to keep the world out. It's about constructing an unshakable foundation within, so you can engage with the world more fully, more freely, and more authentically than ever before. We've explored the inner citadel, that mental fortress Marcus Aurelius spoke of, where your peace remains untouched by the shifting winds of external opinion. We've reclaimed the idea that your true worth is measured not by the applause you receive, but by the virtue you practice, your wisdom, your courage, your justice, your discipline. And we've seen how this leads to a remarkable emotional resilience, a steady calm that allows you to navigate both praise and criticism with grace, because your sense of self is no longer tied to either. This is the ultimate freedom the Stoics promised. It's the freedom to act from your deepest values rather than your deepest insecurities. It's the freedom to create for the joy of creation, to lead for the sake of service, and to connect without hidden agendas. The philosopher Epictetus, who knew more than most about the difference between external slavery and internal freedom, left us with a guiding light that cuts through all the noise. He said, "Happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within our control and some things are not. Your character, your efforts, your values, these are your domain. The opinions, praise, and judgments of others, these are not. When you focus all your energy on what you can control, you stop wasting your life trying to manage what you cannot." This is where you find your power. This mindset shift is not a single, monumental event. it is a practice, a daily returning to your center. It begins with the small, conscious choices you make today. It's the choice to complete a task well for the satisfaction of a job done, not for the potential compliment. It's the choice to offer an opinion because it is true, not because it is popular. It's the choice to sit in quiet reflection for 5 minutes instead of seeking validation through a screen. Each time you make one of these choices, you are strengthening that muscle of inner resolve. You are proving to yourself that you are enough, all on your own. Progress, not perfection, is the goal. Every step you take toward this self-sufficient mindset is a step toward a life of greater peace, purpose, and authentic connection. This conversation is just the beginning. The real learning happens when we share our journeys and support each other's growth. I would love to hear about your experiences in the comments below. What resonated most with you? Where do you find it most challenging to detach from praise? Your insights not only help you solidify your own understanding, but they create a community of learning where we can all benefit from each other's perspectives. If you found value in exploring these Stoic principles for modern life, consider subscribing to the channel. We're here to continue this exploration together, delving into timeless wisdom that helps us build lives of character, resilience, and meaning. Thank you for investing this time in your own growth. Remember, the goal isn't to become impervious to the world, but to become so grounded in who you are that you can finally engage with it on your own terms. If your sense of worth came only from your character and your actions, if you truly measured yourself not by the applause you received but by the integrity you demonstrated, not by your popularity but by your principles, not by what you accumulated but by what you contributed, how would your life change? This is not a hypothetical question, it is an invitation to a profound personal audit. Would you walk through your days with a quieter confidence, knowing your value was not on the line in every interaction? Would you make bolder choices, pursue passion projects you've been putting off, because the risk of failure would no longer feel like a verdict on your soul? Would your relationships deepen because you could show up without the hidden agenda of needing something from the other person, free to offer your authentic self without expectation? This is the quiet revolution that Stoicism offers. It's not about discarding ambition or ceasing to care about doing excellent work. It's about recentering the source of your validation from the noisy, unpredictable external world to the quiet, sovereign space of your own conscience. The goal is to build a life where your mood is no longer a puppet on the strings of other people's opinions, where your joy is generated from the inside out, making you infinitely more resilient, more creative, and ultimately more free. So as the screen fades, carry that question with you. Let it be the lens through which you view your next decision, your next interaction, your next quiet moment of reflection. The answer doesn't need to come all at once. It unfolds in the small, daily choices to act with a little more courage, a little more kindness, and a little less concern for who is watching.